Well, hello, my name is Speaker Jim Amann, and I'm here again with the show Then and Now. This is the second series of a four-part series dealing with human trafficking. We're so happy today to have one of the champions of the bill that we've had for the last 2 years, and if it wasn't for Deputy Speaker Jeff Berger, I don't think we would have gone as far as we have in the last 2 years when it comes to this very horrific issue. Last year, Deputy Speaker Berger and myself and Ray Bouchard, the author of the book, The Berlin Turnpike, we were able to sit down with Jeff and tell him some of the problems that we were having with human trafficking when it came to the New Haven and Hartford Advocate, where basically they were advertising in these newspapers escort services that actually had girls underage. We felt that that was something that, being owned by the oldest newspaper in Connecticut, the Hartford Current, and owning these two magazines, that we certainly wanted to make people aware of it. It was part of a court case a few years ago that was pointed out in the book, The Berlin Turnpike. And again, if it wasn't for Representative Berger's courage, certainly we wouldn't have gotten so far in last year's legislation in 2012. So Jeff, thanks for coming here today, and could you shed a little light on when we did come to you and we introduced this problem and how you felt about it, and obviously what action we took?
Yeah, hey, first, thanks for inviting me on the show, and it's certainly been a pleasure working with you over the last two legislative sessions and dealing with this really horrific issue that we see permeating throughout the state of Connecticut, and your leadership has been great, along with Ray and others, and a coalition of church groups, along with the victims themselves who have come to testify in Hartford, both last legislative session and this legislative session, their courage that they have shown to help us and guide us in crafting this important legislation, which, again, as you had stated, started last year in dealing with ads that were basically ads dealing with underage children, both men and women, underage children, in a criminal enterprise, subject to a criminal enterprise by criminals, basically prostituting young minors in hotel rooms located in Berlin and other municipalities, and doing that through advertisements and through the internet. And we addressed that issue last year. We're able to curtail those ads and limit their availability for Johns to use and have access to. And then we expanded that good work from last year in a coalition, a bipartisan coalition, this past legislative session, which culminated in the consolidation of 3 bills that dealt with various issues and changes that really are historic, Jim, in what the state of Connecticut is doing as far as human trafficking, prostitution, penalties for Johns, and looking at the charges that deal with prostitution and dealing with eliminating those charges if those victims are subject to human trafficking and are minors. So we've done really groundbreaking work, and again, your coalition of individuals, along with the General Assembly, both in the House and in the Senate, have been instrumental. Representative Fox, the House Chair of Judiciary, was instrumental in negotiating some compromises in the consolidation of one bill, House Bill 5666, which became law and was signed and as a public act by the governor. And on the Republican side, ranking member of the Judiciary Committee on the House, Representative Rabimbis from Naugatuck, was also greatly instrumental, along with Deputy Speaker Betsy Ritter. So it was a good work this year, and we're very, very proud of what we did.
Well, obviously, it's really come a long way in a very short period of time. So I want to get a little bit more into the detail of it. If you recall last year, when we first met with you on this, and I think one of the things we actually showed you that day the problems of not only obviously in newspapers, but now because of social media, how easy it is for someone to buy somebody over a computer, Twitter. But I think what really amazed me when Ray came to me, and then we shared it with you and shared it with Chairman Fox, when he said to me that within 5 to 10 minutes, I could buy an underage girl off of Facebook. And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? And then he showed me the code and how to get into that, and then right into this whole underworld of social media right on your Facebook, which parents need to be aware of. They need to understand that, Facebook seems to be, it's, in fact, nowadays, the younger people think Facebook is for seniors only. It's not even cool anymore, but in reality, they got it off Craigslist and some of the other ones they fought to remove these sort of prostitution ads. But here we are right on something like social media, Facebook, and then recently even Twitter, that you can get into these different ones and buy young women and young men over the internet, and not just young men and young women underage, but pretty much anything you want, like buying almost a pizza pie. And that was pretty amazing to me, and very scary, because I think for we all have this old image of prostitution being on a street corner and those sort of things, when the reality is it is such a big business now that what they call an in-call and out-call is basically done most of it by social media now, and we address that with that bill too, and I think we still have a long way to go on that particular legislation. But when we first brought that to you last year, what was your reaction to that on Facebook? And then, obviously, what action did we take right as soon as that occurred?
Well, you make a good point with that, and I remember the meeting very vividly in the conference room at Judiciary Committee. And, in my former life, obviously, I have a 20-year retired veteran of the Waterbury Police Department, and some of the activity on social media, on Facebook, on Craigslist, was very surprising to me, to say the least, where the access to this type of criminal enterprise, which it is, was so readily accessible for anyone to access. And like you said very well, it's moved from the street to social media and expanded through the internet, and has expanded the ability of these individuals to take advantage of minors, to create a larger criminal enterprise, which when you look at the dollars is hundreds of millions of dollars throughout the United States. So it was an eye-opener, and it was something that I said needed to be addressed, and that there was vast support, certainly in a bipartisan way, both in the House and the Senate.
Well, certainly, and I think when we went and we brought up the victim, Marie, to testify, I think as we'll be having her as a guest on one of the future shows, which I think the people will be very interested in hearing her story. But I think it was extremely moving testimony of getting someone there that lived through this, and I think it helped our cause too. But the most amazing thing, I don't know if you recall it or not, during the judiciary testimony was Hartford Current themselves. Their attorney came in and basically said they were opposed to the bill on First Amendment rights. And listen, I understand newspaper and freedom of speech, but we're talking about selling young people under the age of 18 years old for prostitution on two media newspapers that they owned. And I remember being cross-examined by Representative O'Neill, who was talking about freedom of speech and those sort of things. And I reminded him of, I think we had a 13th Amendment about human slavery too, if I recall, and children, etc. But to me, the Current at that particular time, defending their actions of receiving money for actually, in my words, and I said it then, I'll say it now, they were no better than the pimp because they were receiving money for the prostitution of young women. And we were so glad that they did finally, on their own in October 1st of 2012, they have pulled those escort ads off of their newspapers. So again, I give kudos to you and the General Assembly for standing up, and also the Hartford Courant for realizing that there are things much more important than the almighty dollar, and certainly how any of them could go to sleep at night, taking money, knowing exactly what is occurring, what was a very positive step for us. So let's move into 2013. And yeah, it was amazing. I went down to Washington to a seminar, and who was there but Deputy Speaker Betsy Ritter and some others that were in from the House of Representatives on this whole thing on human trafficking. So it was great to see that the women caucus finally got behind this, because it was kind of men-led first, which was pretty cool and unusual, but the women finally got involved and became a very strong voice. So why don't we get into detail about the three bills and the merger, and the one that we were fighting on, the one that Betsy and the women were fighting on, and we all finally came together to do one, I think, a tremendous mega bill that dealt with human trafficking.
Well, and you're right, it was great having the coalition this year. We had started out, we shed light, so to speak, on the issue. We were able to build on that momentum that we created in last legislative session, and create a larger coalition. And Deputy Speaker Ritter's bill was signed on by all of the women in the House, both Republicans and Democrats. So that was a powerful coalition on a very, very important issue, which they certainly understood to be important, not only for their individual districts as a whole, but as a whole, the state of Connecticut and what we needed to do legislative-wise. The three bills, two of which finally became part of the final bill, dealt with forfeiture of assets, which became an important hammer, so to speak, to use against the pimps and others that would be involved in this criminal enterprise, and a loss and forfeiture of assets, that's either property, money, etc., and then put into the criminal victims injury fund, which was a great source of revenue to prop up that fund and to put the dollars back into an area that needs so much vital attention. So that was certainly one component of what we did in 2013. Some of the other issues that came out of the 2013 legislation dealt with dealing with the individuals that seek out these minors, and those are the Johns. And we increased the penalty from a misdemeanor to a Class C felony if that individual knowingly knows that individual who is being perpetrated in this criminal activity is part of human trafficking, it knowingly knows that the person is involved in human trafficking or that person is a minor. So that's an important tool, and that led to some negotiation, because we actually wanted to get that a little bit higher on the felony status. But I'm okay with that compromise. I certainly think the Class C felony bumps it up to an increased level from a misdemeanor, and really adds some teeth into what we knew about addressing the product that they target to be able to take advantage of these youth. Those are some of the very, very important components. And the third being the ability, if you are charged with prostitution, to be able to petition the court to vacate your sentence. If you are hereby convicted of prostitution, male or female, to petition the court, a process involved in that to vacate your sentence and your criminal record if it's found that you were a victim of human trafficking and that you were a minor and involved in human trafficking. So there's a way and a means for those that are perpetrated and abused to be able to have regress through the criminal system, and also to be able to take advantage of benefits that would be associated with the victim's compensation fund.
Well, that's really so important, because against society for, I guess, since the time we stood up and could walk as human beings, we look at this crime as, in many ways, a very harmless crime. It's not really affecting anybody. In reality, it is, especially when it comes to underage kids, many of them being forced, coerced, threatened, beaten. Sure. If anybody can't understand why this young person, after they are out of the grasp of the pimps at that time, that they try then to, as best they can, live some sort of normal life. But in reality, they have to be arrested. They have to go through the judicial system as a criminal. Then that's on their record. So now the person that's had all these things happen to them, now with a record of prostitution, tries to go get a job and to try to get their life better. And there's no recourse for them in order to do it. This bill, thanks to you, Deputy Speaker Berger and others, now allows that young person or that person, whoever that's in human trafficking, but especially the underage kids, to sponge their record, to go up and petition in front of a court and to show that they were victims of human trafficking, and then be treated as a victim like we do with anybody else that has been abused in the Connecticut system, and that is to be taken care of and given the help that they need, but certainly to just have their record clean so they can at least try to make a living. Because the biggest problem, a lot of big problems, but another huge problem is when someone gets out of human trafficking, they can't find a job, or a lot of times there is drug addictions involved, whether it happened prior to them being human trafficked or during human traffic, where they're forced and being controlled by drugs. There's just no help for them. So again, I know Marie, for one, and others are so thankful for what is done, because now she can finally stand up and petition and get her record clean. So
yeah, I mean, that was important. That was important, and Jim, that's certainly not very, very easy when you are dealing with the judicial system, and when you're talking about vacating sentences. That certainly becomes a little bit of a far reach at times to be able to create the process to be able to vacate sentences, and we were able to get over that hurdle. And really create, like I said in the beginning of the show, some groundbreaking legislation that changes people's lives.
Right.
That gives those individuals another opportunity. When they were held victims, and they were part of a criminal enterprise that abused them and led to other criminal activity, oftentimes we see that it's not only prostitution, there are other crimes that are involved with this criminal enterprise, and those could be assaults, those could be larcenies, those could be some serious felony charges, robbery, theft of both personal property and services. So there's a whole myriad of different felonies and misdemeanors that are an outgrowth of us dealing with this issue, showing the light on it, and giving some hope and opportunity for those that are these victims.
Well, thank you so much, Deputy Speaker Jeff Berger, for coming here today and sharing the story, and again for being a champion for human rights, and certainly for these young people that have fallen victim to this horrific crime. Right after following this show, we'll be showing a little bit of what happened in 2013 on press conference and a few other things that occurred during the legislative session, how we fought this, and we hope you find it interesting. And then obviously that'll be followed by the music video Silent Cry, and a movie that we'll be shooting this year dealing with human trafficking. So again, thank you so much for tuning in again, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Wearing a disguise, this woman, known as Marie, told lawmakers on the Judiciary Committee about the 1.5 months she spent as a sex slave. That was back in 2008 at the age of 23 when she was forced into prostitution as part of the growing human trafficking problem.
It's just something I had to deal with. You just take it day by day, and you just hope that the outcome, there's an end to it.
Her nightmare did end when she was arrested for prostitution, something she's now convicted of.
When I apply for a job or loan, I have to mention my past in any way to anyone. There it is, arrested for prostitution. Today I'm asking you to set me free at last.
Now she's sharing her story, hoping lawmakers will act to strengthen human trafficking laws. Under a new proposal, those who recruit victims would face felony charges, and victims like Marie would get prostitution convictions erased from their records. Among those supporting the bill, former House Speaker Jim Amann.
Human trafficking is a global problem. It is a national problem, and it certainly is a Connecticut problem. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry around the world.
This proposal, if passed, would make Connecticut laws among the toughest in the country.
There's hope. There's hope. Yeah, things are changing.
There's a second human trafficking bill under consideration now in the legislature. Lawmakers say they expect both to be combined into one proposal. Reporting in Hartford, Deborah Bogsty, NBC Connecticut News.
Silent the call.